Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to the Yeshiva for having me this morning. As you just heard, last week, Sunday, traveled to Eretz Yisrael and came back right before Shabbos. So today is Thursday, which means that I'm finally getting a half-decent night's sleep by now. But I had a really special trip. I struggled to find single words to describe it because it was very complex and there were a lot of different parts of the trip. So I don't want to say amazing and give you the wrong impression. I don't want to say sad and give you the wrong impression. I don't want to say meaningful and give you the wrong impression because we did some things that were all of those things. Some of them were some of those things. Some of them were none of those things. So I just want to share with you a few thoughts about my trip in general. Maybe I'll even talk about some of the non-important parts of like how the trip developed and how I was contacted. And maybe some also messages that I feel going in that I was hoping to see there, things that I actually did see there, and things that maybe if you were to go, you'd also be able to see. So you can consider it as if I was your proxy and to bring back certain things from the trip. So first thing is now it's already about 2.5 weeks ago, I got a phone call from a good friend of mine from Cincinnati, Ohio, actually, a Rav in Cincinnati, Ohio, who I happen to know from Aguda-type functions. Now, you all are young, and you don't know the difference between Aguda and OU, except the fact that if you saw Aguda on something like your pasta, you probably wouldn't eat it, only OU. But they're different organizations. They have different rabbinic, I would say, constituents and their who they represent. I'm not traditionally an OU or Aguda person, probably a little bit more, I kind of deal with the Aguda. Just because they have a conference that I go to every week and get free food every year and get free food, but OU doesn't, or at least I don't attend that one. But anyways, a friend of mine called me and he said, "Would you like to join this mission in Eretz Yisrael?" Now everybody knows what happened on October 7th. We all found out about it on Simchas Torah, on Shemini Atzeres Simchas Torah, and since that time we've been, very anxious, very sad about a lot of what was happening. And when he called me and he offered an opportunity, thank you so much, to visit Eretz Yisrael and to kind of see on the ground what's happening there, of course, I immediately wanted to do so. He offered me to bring somebody, which I did, and he said, "Look, we don't know a lot about what we're going to be doing on this trip. A lot of it is, there's a lot of moving parts, and we want to visit certain places. The plan was to visit some of the communities which were hit by the terror attack, Rahman al-Islam, to visit some of the families that were affected, some of the people who survived, some of the heroes that fought, visit soldiers in bases, visit sick people in hospitals, all of this visit with community, with government ambassadors to understand what's going on behind closed doors." Those were all the things that they were planning on doing with, again, a little bit of a caveat. They were saying, like, we're going to try our best to do all these things, but the trip really was to leave on a Sunday, get there Monday afternoon, you lose time. Monday afternoon, there's already going to be meetings all the way through Thursday afternoon. Again, anyone after that can stay longer, but since as an Orthodox rabbi, I work on Shabbos and only on Shabbos, generally speaking, so we had to be back for Shabbos. So it was going to be a packed couple of days. That was the plan. So what happened? So we get there on a Monday afternoon. The first thing we did is we met with families that were displaced. Now let me explain to you what that means.
What does the group look like?
So the group looks like this. Good question. But someone wants to know, what does the group look like? So the group looks like, it was about 45 people from America, various Rabbanim and lay leaders from around the country. The only ones from the Midwest were myself, and the person I traveled with was a lay leader from my shul. Mr. Nati Klein came with me as well. We traveled together from Cleveland. No one else from Cleveland came. No one else from Chicago or Detroit was there either. It was just us from Cleveland. Cincinnati, I guess, is the Midwest. So Rabbi Weinrib was there. He was the one who called me. And there were Rabbanim from New Jersey, New York. There were Rabbanim from Florida, from Los Angeles. There were Rabbanim from Seattle. There were Rabbanim from all over the country. 20, again, pairs of Rabbanim and lay leaders. Again, these are different forms of orthodoxy, right? We'll say that there were a few black hat Rabbanim, mostly not. A few Kippah Struga Rabbanim. Everybody was together. Everybody, again, maybe I want to mention that in a minute, but everybody was together in a single unified mission. But they were definitely, it was a colorful group. We did not travel together. There were a few on my flight. I flew from Kennedy Airport on Sunday afternoon. But most of them came from their own flights, and some came a little bit earlier, a little bit later. Some were there. There was a couple that were there from already before Shabbos. So we all met together in the hotel where most everyone was staying. in Yerushalayim the first night on Monday night. Now, the first thing that you notice when you get to the hotel is that they're, unlike a hotel normally, which the lobby is quiet, there's a few awkward shidduch dates going on in the hotel. That was not the case here. There were a few awkward shidduch dates, but they weren't going very well because there were kids riding scooters all around the lobby. Now, what were these kids in their pajamas doing in the lobby? The answer is that, now you all know what the country looks like. Gaza Strip, right, is the southwest little sliver of Eretz Yisrael, and there are communities, which you can call them yishuvim, kibbutzim. There are various types of communities around there. Those were the ones that were attacked. The families that were living in those communities, it is not safe right now to live in those communities. They're shooting missiles. Now, the closer you are to Gaza, remember this, the less time you have to hit a shelter. So if, let's say, you live in Tel Aviv, right? So Tel Aviv also, they're shooting missiles at Tel Aviv. It takes about a minute for a missile from when it's launched and the siren sounds to actually get shelter, which is okay, because most people, if you have a minute, that means if Chas Shalom, a siren would go off right now, we'd run to the basement over here. We wouldn't even have to run. We could probably all file out, and by the time the missile would get close enough, we'd already all be downstairs in shelter, and that wouldn't be a problem. But if you live, if for example someone's shooting a missile from across the street, so then you have much less time. You got 5 or 10 seconds. So if you live in Sderot, you live in any of these places, Kfar Aza, Nachalot, any of these places, just from the missiles themselves, it's very dangerous to be there when missiles are being fired. So throughout the year, again, it doesn't happen that often. It is dangerous. They have many more shelters than they do in Tel Aviv because they need them to be closer to you. But if you're not expecting missiles every second, you can live with it. You can't live with it if there's a war going on and there's constantly shooting barrages of missiles. You can't be living there at this time. Also, some of those places that we mentioned, they were so completely destroyed physically, and the emotional trauma of going back to those places after they were evacuated is very difficult. So these families are basically displaced families. Maybe if you learned about the Holocaust, you've heard the word DP camp. DP does not stand for Dr. Pepper. It stands for displaced person, right? It's a displaced person. So these families were displaced, and what they're doing is there's not so much tourism right now because it's a war, and therefore the hotels are pretty empty. The government is actually paying for $100 a day per family, whatever it is, or per room for these hotels. So the King Solomon, which is called something else now, like the Cassia Hotel, the Dan Panorama, the Ramada, a lot of these hotels, again, the higher end hotels like the Waldorf Astoria, that is not being occupied by, they didn't turn that into a DP camp. But some of the mid-level hotels are, and I don't know if anybody knows what it's like to spend more than one night with a family in a hotel room. If anybody's driven to Lakewood and left at 10 p.m. and stopped over, right? So you can do it for like one night. You can sneak everybody upstairs and sleep on your twin beds and the couch with 11 people. It's very difficult to live in a hotel. It's not meant for living. That's why even if you could afford it, you wouldn't want to live in a hotel the whole year. It's just not practical, especially with little kids. They don't really have schools. They're trying to set up schools. Some of them are going to schools and various types of schools, but a lot of them are too young. And some of them don't want to go to school, and some of them are still traumatized, and they need more chizik before they can go back to school. So the hotel lobby, the first thing you see in the hotel lobby is you see families that are from the south that are parked in these hotels. Again, not geschmack, not fun, not cool for them at all. The first night we actually met, we had a little bit of an orientation. A lot of it was about security. Now you're wondering, like, why would you go to a war zone right now? Well, again, the reason why we go is because, first of all, it's not dangerous. It's really not dangerous if you're flying into Tel Aviv and going to Yerushalayim and you're with armored buses. And again, the real danger, let's not forget, is in Gaza. That's really where the danger is. It wasn't dangerous. But we did need to have a security briefing. So they brought us together, and we spoke about what the purpose of the trip was going to be. We spoke about security and what it means to shelter and how to find shelter, and what if there is no shelter, how you got to lie down on the ground and cover your head because you don't want to get hit chas v'shalom by shrapnel and all this stuff. So these were important parts of it also. A little bit, I don't want to say scary, but again, it reminds you of where you are. Right? You're not just strolling around in cafes and visiting people, because there is a concern, especially because, again, I'll tell you in a second, we did visit the south, and therefore it was important to, again, there were missiles. In fact, when I landed, actually, when the plane just landed, there was a siren in the airport. There was a missile headed for Tel Aviv. On a plane, when you land, you're never more trapped in your life than you are in an airplane when it lands, especially with Jews who all stand up the second the plane lands, right? And everyone's trying to get their carry-on suitcase, and you hear a siren, and people are freaking out. Again, well, what are you going to do, right? It doesn't help to freak out, but there were people that were very concerned. There's no shelter on the plane, right? you can't go into the bathroom and hide, right? It doesn't work that way. So people were concerned. The person who picked me up from the airport told me that he had to get out of his car and run under a shelter. That's what everyone was doing when you hear that siren. So the sirens are a reality. We didn't hear too many of them when I was there. They said there were some. I didn't hear them. Maybe I was in a loud area, whatever. I didn't hear them. But right when I landed, actually, it was really a taste of the reality that people are going through there. So we had this security briefing. We went right from there to a hotel where we actually heard from people that lived in Sderot how they handled the morning of October 7th. Now, I'll tell you one little story. I could talk right now for 3 days straight, probably for more. I was there for 3 days. I'm not going to tell you everything, but one thing, right when we got there, we heard from a family that they understood. They were woken up. Again, the attack started at 6:30 in the morning on Shmini Atzeres, which was for them Simchas Torah. And there was a family, they didn't have guns. This is an interesting thing. You'd think if you lived so close to such a dangerous place, you would have guns. You'd have all types of holsters and everything like that. They are not allowed to have guns there. And interesting, someone told me that, if I heard correctly, the reason why is they were afraid of terrorists infiltrating and then actually stealing guns from them. So they kind of disarmed the people, which kind of doesn't make sense to me when I think about it right now. It's like taking away guns from people that have a license for gun because we're afraid that someone who doesn't have a license, well, how am I supposed to protect myself when that guy infiltrates? I don't understand it, but
they didn't want to have militant settlements.
yeah, but you can't have no guns. You have to have some people. There was not one gun on the Moshav. It doesn't really make sense, right? Huh?
The government took them a few years.
Yeah, they took them a few months ago. It was only a few months ago, they said. Anyways, so they get this alert on their phone. Their phone starts buzzing. The people are Shomer Shabbos. Some yes, some not. Either way, but even the ones that were, their phones are buzzing and they're realizing something's going on. And they look at their phone and they see that the security, chats that they're on are just blowing up. So they realize something's going on. They start hearing sirens. They realize this is not a regular siren. They turn on their phones. They realize this is Sakona. They turn on their phones. And they see that there are people tell them there are terrorists walking around the streets. Now, again, there are families here with children. They don't have any weapons in the house. So the person that we was speaking, he said that his son had a harpoon. A harpoon is something that when you go scuba diving, you want to shoot a dolphin or a whale. It's like a giant gun. That's all that they had, and they had kitchen knives. He said that they sat there by the door. They had their house was, all their houses are on the first floor. They're all like little cottages. And they were able to secure a lot of the entrances, or at least they were hoping they were secure. There was one door, which was a glass door, that they could not secure in a regular way. They had to stand guard by the door the entire day until they thought it was safe in case a terrorist would enter. And the entire time, again, they took like breaks going to eat because they had all three of them. He stood there with a harpoon next to the door for 9 hours, pointing it at the door. And next to him were his two sons. He had one who was 20, one who was 18, with kitchen knives that if anybody should come in, they would attack them. And the wife and the daughter was in the back room. And they were very, very quiet. They didn't want anybody to know that they were in there. And they just stood there the entire day like that. And again, and these are the lucky ones because no one walked in. So that was a very, we heard a couple of those kind of stories. That was the first night. Now the next morning, we got up. Actually, we went to the Kaisel for Vasikin. I went with the person I was with. We went to the Kaisel, came back, and then we heard from an ambassador for Israel. Now, he was explaining to us a lot of what's going on in the media and the way Israel is trying to present. I don't know if anyone here has news access. I imagine in Yeshiva it's no access. No, you should know. There's really no reason to follow it every day. The news cycle is kind of repetitive, but I know he's sarcastic, don't worry. But so there really is no point. But they were telling us exactly how Israel is very careful to be precise with their numbers and to back everything up. A lot of one of the defining characteristics of Hamas is that they're huge liars, and nothing that they say has any truth to it. Which, in fact, the reason why they win the media war, if you think about it, media is by definition a lie. That's the whole thing. Everything you see on the internet, I won't say everything, 99% of what you see on the internet is not real. It's a lie. Hamas puts a lot of effort into winning that media war, and they're actually very successful in it. Why? Because in the media, the bigger liar you are, the more success you'll have, right? The better swimmer you are, you're going to win if you're in the water, right? Hamas, that's mamish their domain. Nothing has to be, there has to be no truth whatsoever. They make up this whole narrative about the land and the people and the Israel and the genocide and the apartheid and the occupation, all that stuff. the more, again, remember, here's the rule for life. The bigger liar you are, the more successful you are on social media. The more real and depth you have, you will be less successful on social media. So if you see somebody with like 1 billion followers, probably there's something very fake and not real about it. I would say probably. I know for a fact it is. Like I know Rav Chaim Kanievsky had 0 Instagram followers, right? He didn't zero. What?
Did he have a channel?
I don't. I think it was shut down due to lack of activity. It was just he couldn't be successful in that. But again, Haman, one of the biggest followings in the world, right? And anybody in those two categories, generally you could assume a pop star, all these models and this and that with the filters, as that. The reason why they're successful is because they're very superficial, and usually even the surface is a lie. There's for sure no depth. Even what they're showing you is generally speaking a lie. So Hamas is very successful like this. Israel, we're trying to compete somewhat on this media war, you can call it that. I don't even know why anybody... It's like a whole alma de shikra of people that live in the news, right? They don't understand that there's a real place called Israel with real people, and everything is in the media. So if you're like very preoccupied with that, so then you're preoccupied with this media war. Israel tries to fight it. They try to make some very obvious, advances in this media war. They're probably never going to win it. It's not something that they'll ever win, because, again, like I said, of the falsehood of the whole concept. But the ambassador was saying that any numbers that Israel puts out, they always err on the side of caution. They always have stats to back it up and data and videos. And, when you say, oh, you bombed a hospital in Gaza, so Hamas has 0, they never support that whatsoever, where they have no support, no proof whatsoever. How do we know that a missile came from from Israel, from the IDF into the hospital? They just immediately say this, and then the whole world takes the bait, and Israel has to afterwards prove and show that that's not actually what happened. Again, that was a classic example of how the media, again, I don't think that they're purposely calling black white. Again, the power of the media, Hamas for sure is calling black white and white black, but the general media, they fall for the bait, and they take the bait every single time. And it's very difficult to reverse that once it gets into the media, because people are already on to the next thing. The news cycle is so fast, and that's what this ambassador was just explaining to us, how it's important to stay truthful and how we have to go back to America. And he gave us a little bit of an achrayas to fight this media war. I, by the way, want to parenthetically mention that I take exception to calling it a media war. I think that there has to be bullets involved in order for it to be called a war. Like you can try to make me feel chizuk and geschmack. Yeah, I'm going to go home, lie under my covers while I, sip lemonade and air conditioning, posting, Arabs are stupid and ichi and the IDF is great. I'm not in a war, right? Why am I not in a war? Because there's no bullets, okay? There's people there's bullets flying over their head. Let's use the word war appropriately, and let's understand who's really being Meister Nefesh, not us. We're very lucky to be very, very safe here in Beechwood, Ohio, with double doors, which only the second one is locked, but that's also good. So that was that. That morning, Tuesday morning, we went to a police station in Sderot. So again, I don't know what everybody knows here, but I'll just tell you basically what happened in Sderot. Sderot, we visited a police station which is not a police station anymore. If you go there, it's flat. It's just rubble. What happened? So Sderot was overrun with terrorists. We spent a lot of time in Sderot. I'll tell you more about it. And the terrorists ended up taking over the police station. At that time, in the police station, there were a few police officers who were on duty. It was a Yontif morning, a Shabbos Yontif morning. A bunch of terrorists went in. They killed some of the police officers. We're not sure exactly what happened to all the police officers, if they were shot or they died in the rubble, but it was basically overrun by terrorists. There was a firefight there that took quite a while, meaning a gunfight that took quite a while. Eventually, the military, when they got there, decided that it wasn't worth having a guerrilla battle going in and getting the terrorists. They just decided what we're going to do is take a bulldozer and we're just going to level the place with the terrorists inside of it. I asked one of the commanders there, how did they know that everyone was dead? Maybe there were hostages. They said they understood that they had killed everybody, and that was the best of their knowledge. And if it's possible, there was nothing really they could do anyways. So they had to go in with these bulldozers. When you get there, it's mamish rubble. When we were there, it was actually interesting. There was a woman who was there. She was there for the first time. Her husband worked in the police station. He was killed in the police station. So she had gotten up from Shiva 2 weeks before. and this was her first time. She had never visited before. She lived in a place a little bit outside of Sderot. Why would she go to her husband's office? She never went to her husband's office. So she had never been there before. But she came. She finally had the courage to get up and to go visit the place where her husband died heroically. What?
For closure,
I don't know if it was closure. She wanted to see it the same way we wanted to see it. She for sure wanted to see it, right? So she had gone there. She was actually a frum lady. It was, she was wearing a skirt. She was a police officer herself. She was wearing a police officer with a skirt and a tichel. And she told us about her husband, how brave he was, and how great he was, and how friendly he was, and how he really wanted to help Yidden all the time. And it was very, very meaningful to hear. And it meant a lot to her that people came from America. And people were supportive and people were remembering, and people were talking about the heroism of her husband. That was definitely very, very meaningful to her. So that was what happened in Sderot. After that, we actually met the mayor of Sderot. He spoke to us. The mayor of Sderot was a very, very energetic, very upbeat person. You could tell that he's been through a lot. He had spent the last few years building up the city. The city of Sderot today, before October 7th, had 36,000 people living there. Today, when you go there, it's a ghost town. There's only 3,000 people. Almost everyone has left for now. Again, there's trauma. There's somewhat of a danger to be there. And he said he's going to have to rebuild. He built it up, and now to rebuild it, it's going to take a lot of energy, and he was prepared to do that. One of the most interesting parts of the trip, we met the 911 dispatcher from Sderot. He was somebody who was there in the call center that morning. We visited that call center. It's kind of a place you go in. They got a bunch of people sitting there in chairs with screens. You call 911. You call ambulance. You call police. You call anybody. That's where the call is going to. And of course, on October 7th in the morning, Simchas Torah that morning, they were flooded with calls. And what he told us, this is one of the most moving parts of the trip, is he didn't play back the calls to us, but he told us, you're on the other end of the phone, and someone calls and says, my husband went to shul, and I don't know where he is, and there's someone with a gun, there's a mechabel, there's a terrorist, I see him outside, what should I do? So he says, you got to go into the mamad, you have to go into the shelter place, lock your doors, but where's my husband? I need my husband going to come home, he doesn't know there's a terrorist, someone has to tell him. And he said that he got calls from people, and these calls, I actually heard this one on the radio when I was in the cab, you get calls from people that are like, my son was shot. I'm holding my child. He was shot by a terrorist. Can you send an ambulance right away? And he said, I'm on the other end of the phone. There's a big problem. There's no ambulance. No one is coming. So you tell them, try to give them tips how to keep them alive. And you tell them, we're going to send someone immediately. But he said, I know. I have to say that because I can't have them panic. What am I going to say? There's no ambulances? So I said, we're going to send someone immediately. And they say, when? He says, right now, I'm going to work on it right now. And he was saying you're trying to give them, hope, chizik. But the truth is, really you have to teach them the skills over the phone. And as that call's coming in, more calls and more calls and more calls, and they see what's going on in the city. They have video cameras from the Tzomet, from the entrance to Sderot. So they saw what was happening. And this was some of what they had to deal with in that day. And these are very, 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 very strong people. And you can see on their faces that they're still suffering the trauma of having to deal with this. They're lucky to be alive, and they were very heroic and very helpful, but at the same time, they were present for some terrible atrocities. We saw some videos of people that were, attacked, and some very difficult things to see, which, again, we didn't see anything gruesome and nothing up close, but you could tell that there was the carnage was unbelievable from that day. And they do have a lot of different things. As maybe some of you know, there's like a video that they put together, a collage that they are showing to some of the media outlets to try to, again, win that media war, or at least participate in it, make sure that there is some truth to it. So that was Sderot. After that, we met with some families. We went to meet with some families who had lost sons, husbands. Very sad. The people in these areas are extremely resilient people. People dying for Eretz Yisrael has been happening for thousands of years, but for sure for the last 75, in 48, in 67 and 73, and other wars, and certainly today that they're fighting again. Casualties and civilian casualties. These are things that it's the reality. It's something that it saddens us deeply, but the bravery and the heroism and the courage of the families who are able to, they say, listen, we met a father who lost his oldest child The son was home with friends, and they got the call that everyone has to come down. They grabbed their guns and they ran down and they took on terrorists face to face. They said, my son, they battled 3-4 groups. They took out tens and tens of terrorists, but then when they got to the end, they went to a police station to rearm themselves. They didn't realize, again, in Kisufim, the police station, that's where the terrorists were. And in his group of 6 or 7 people, 4 of them were killed. And again, the friends were able to tell over the stories. And the father said, I paid the ultimate price for Eretz Yisrael. Again, these are very hard things to hear people say, but you sit with somebody who really just, you spend so much time raising your child and giving to him and being moist nefesh for Eretz Yisrael, and to, in a minute, just lose them like that. A lot of bravery, a lot of courage, and people are really, really strong. It seems like strong. I'm sure it's going to be a long process for them of recovering from this, but at least the way that we encountered them, there was a lot of bravery that we witnessed at that time. We went from there, actually, to the Ma'aras HaMachpelah. That was what we did that day. We went there. The truth is, the Ma'aras HaMachpelah is really on the West Bank. If you know Eretz Yisrael, Gaza is all the way to the west. The West Bank, it's a little confusing, but the West Bank is really on the east. It's the West Bank of the Jordan River, which is the eastern border. So if you're on the West Bank, you're actually all the way to the east of Eretz Yisrael. We went to Hebron. We davened in the Kivrei Avos, which is definitely appropriate to mention. It's Parshas Chayei Sarah, where the Ma'aras HaMachpelah became ours. Kiryat Arba, that's where we went. Kiryat Arba is 97% Arab, 97% Muslim. We visited there with the Avos, first and foremost. Actually, we kind of peeled away from the group after that. We met somebody there who took us around. We visited soldiers who were stationed all around Kiryat Arba. Actually, when we were there, it was pretty quiet. You heard one explosion. Weren't sure what that was. We didn't hear too much gunfire or anything like that. When we were in Kiryat Arba, so the soldiers had told us that it was pretty quiet there because I think the Arabs kind of got the message that normally they can throw water balloons and be silly or worse, but if you step out of your house, you're dead. And that's why it was pretty quiet. While we were there, they said that they're pretty scared because the orders that the IDF had received, it's pretty well known that it's, again, if you stick your head out of the window wearing a towel on your head, you're going to get shot. That was pretty much the directions that were given. So it was pretty quiet. We met a lot of soldiers. A lot of them, again, the miluim. Miluim means that you're not on active duty necessarily throughout the year, but in wartime you get called up to support the army. A lot of them were young, old. We met a lot of different soldiers. It was very interesting to speak to them. I will tell you that they really appreciated not just our visit, but we told them, like people in America are glued to the news. It's riveting for us what's happening in Eretz Yisrael. We want to know at every moment what's happening with the soldiers, what's happening with the people that are on guard. They were very moved, and it was very meaningful. And someone asked us, "You came on a trip, and no, we came to do this. We came to see you. See me? Why would you come during a war where no one could leave their house and this place is deserted? Why would you come?" I said, because the Jews in America, it's not like, we're not armchair Zionists. We're not, we're not just, posting on Instagram. We really, we're here with you and for you, and whatever you need, we're here to support you. And I came as a representative. They said in the OU trip that we were on that these 40 people, it's 20 shuls, represent. They gave a number which was for sure exaggerated. It's the thing that Rabbanim do. They exaggerate the amount of people that daven in their shul. I have myself over 9,500 mispalim every Shabbos morning. But look, it gave them chizuk, and I guess it's a taste of Hamas medicine. We'll just exaggerate stuff and tell them how much chizuk that they got. But in all seriousness, they really did appreciate. They really did appreciate that we were there in Hebron. We davened. After that, I went to visit a few friends late at night, and that really takes us to Wednesday morning, which was the second full day of our trip. And there were a couple of really interesting parts about this. I'm going to skip some of it because a lot of it was similar to what we had done the day before. But I want to tell you about a very, very meaningful visit. Maybe Arnyoel will also appreciate this. We visited the Chevra Kadisha and the Zaka of Tzahal. Now, I don't know if you know what these organizations do. These are the organizations that, first of all, they pick up the pieces, Rahman al-Islam, that in all these terror attacks, they collect the dead bodies, they collect the parts of the bodies, and they also prepare the bodies for burial. Now, there's Zaka. Everyone's heard of Zaka. Zaka is an organization that deals with civilian casualties. The army, Tzahal, Tzva Haganah Yisrael, they have their own Zaka and Chaver Kadisha. That means that Zaka doesn't take care of soldiers. Again, they work together sometimes, but generally speaking, if there's a death in the army, Chas v'Shalom, so they have their own unit which goes down and to clean up and to bring the nifter back to Kfuras Yisrael, and that's a very, very special thing. They're Rabbonim. It's full of very erlich people. Just like any Chaver Kadisha, any Zaka has to be very devoted and very, very special, very, very special group of people. So we visited there, and they told us exactly how this process goes of identifying bodies. Now I want to tell you, the Arabs, the Muslims, the Hamas, they were extremely brutal. Again, you've all read about it. Not only did they murder people in a brutal way, but they also tried to, afterwards they went and they burned a lot of the bodies. They explained to us how they identified the bodies, either through eyewitnesses, through DNA, through teeth, through fingerprints, through dog tags. These are all ways that you can identify a body. Rahman al-Islam, of the 1,400 that were killed, many of them soldiers from Tzahal, just only from the army, of soldiers that were killed on October 7th, there were 40 women that are going to be agunas from the attack, which means that even though we know that their husbands were killed, we cannot positively identify them in any way, and therefore halachically they will probably not be able to ever remarry. That was one of the tragic realities that we heard there. We heard he explained some of the things that they saw. They normally have 30 people on a rotation in this Zakah of Tzahal. They have 300 working on shifts. They're not leaving. They're not going home. Miluim, working to identify bodies, to clean bodies, to bury bodies, and to bring the soldiers back to Kfuras Yisrael. So there's really a tremendous operation over there. Very interesting over there. I want to mention something that we saw there. We had a lunch there with them, a barbecue actually, and there was music. Reb Shmuel Eliyahu from Tzfat came when we were there, and he gave them chizuk. And he actually got the place rocking. He started the song Zachreini Na, which none of you know because you're way too young. But at our chasanas, at Rabbi Kutav's chasana, was very popular, and Rabbi Nussbaum's son's chasana was very popular. But these what? No, it's Dov Shurin. It's Dov Shurin. Yeah, it's Dov Shurin. And anyway, it's a popular song. Basically, the theme of the song is that let's take revenge against the Arabs. Yeah, it's a pretty wild song. But what I want to tell you is the following. I heard yesterday that there was a yeshiva here in Cleveland called Telzer Yeshiva, which you know, which had a siyum, and they had dancing, but the yeshiva said not to have music. So it was interesting to me. I was thinking to myself that I was there with the soldiers, right? Obviously not to have music because Klal Yisrael's in a milchama. I was there with the soldiers, and the soldiers had music and they were dancing. So the chiluk is pasha. What's the chiluk? The difference is that they're in a very difficult situation. They need to raise their spirits. They need to be uplifted, and therefore it's very important that they have barbecues. It's very important that they dance and sing, and they go in good spirits. Anybody who knows anything about war, you have to have ruach, spirit. It's all about the spirit. These are psukim in the Chumash too. Again, there was a Meshuach Muchama who did this, who gave them chizuk, and it's very important for them to be in good spirits when you go to war. Our avodah is not to be in good spirits. We should not be dancing now. For us, our avodah is to be noisei ba'ol, to really share in their burden. I don't want to say sadness, but seriousness, understanding the seriousness. Everybody on their own level, everybody knows what's healthy for them. Everybody has to, though, take it seriously on some level, and therefore, we are not going to be in America. Again, you asked the Reshiva, but in my opinion, now is not a time for dancing and for singing. We should be more concerned than happy and overjoyed at this moment. So we met there, this amazing group. We spoke to them. I spoke personally to the one who runs the whole operation. Very, very, very special man, and some of his people. We had a long conversations about maybe I would say about a half hour about the different tactics that they use and how they and different things. Very interesting fact here. Anybody who's murdered, they actually do not take the uniform and the blood. They don't clean the body. They wrap the body and they put it in the ground just like that. And the intention is that they should go up to Shamayim and should tell their Rebbeinu Shalom, take revenge. V'nokam yashuv litzarav. That you come in your blood-soaked uniform. That's actually the policy. That's the halacha. That's the way that the minig that they practice there is that they actually bury them in their uniforms. Anyone who's killed in uniform, if you're murdered in uniform, that's the what? Only soldiers. I don't know. I don't know what the regular zakah does. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. Okay. Now after that, we went to hospitals and we visited some some of the people that were struck by missile shrapnel. We met some people that were shot. The hospitals we went. The group split up a little bit. I was in Har Hatzofim, and which is in Yerushalayim, not far from where I used to live in Ma'alat Daphna. And we met some young people there that, again, very brave. We met some soldiers there. Very interesting. The soldier that we had met, his father, that was killed in Kisufim when he went into the police station, unbeknownst to him, it was overrun by terrorists. We met somebody that was in his battalion. And actually, we started talking to him, and he said, so one of the guys in our group said, hey, how do you know? And he said, I was killed in Kisufim. That sounds so familiar. Yesterday, and we put two and two together, and he was a good friend, a close friend of the boy who was killed. And he told us about that story, and he was able to confirm it again. Not confirm, we didn't have any doubts, but he was able to give us another first-hand account. And I didn't even mention this before, but I don't want to make everyone sad, but just think about this. The father was telling us that he knew his son went to a battle, right? And Motzei Shabbos, he texted his son, can you call me when you have a chance? Let me know you're okay. Now, he didn't get a text message. So he said, okay, so I started calling his friends and texting his friends. The Army policy is that no one's allowed to tell anybody what happens, right? You're not allowed to. There's somebody who's designated to tell parents that their children are killed in war. So he said, I'm calling his friends, I'm asking them, how is he? And they're all either not answering or telling me, I'm not with him now, I'll tell him to call you. And he's like, you kind of get, I knew. It's not like you don't know. You obviously hold out hope, but you kind of know already. Again, this is one of those friends that had to deal with that conversation. That's just one of those very, very difficult conversations. So we went to the hospitals. After that, we visited with some of the sick people. After that, we actually broke away from the group, and we went again to the West Bank. We had the person I was with, we had a special driver who took us to the West Bank. We actually brought things that could, lift their spirits. We brought mostly cigarettes and phone chargers, battery packs for them, which I guess if you're standing on guard for many hours holding a rifle, you need your phone to be charged. Again, there's no outlets there, so you get a battery pack. And I guess you're smoking cigarettes. That's what you're doing over there. And we went to a base in a place called Kalkilia. Kalkilia was the name of the place. And we met a group who was not a religious group at all. But they were extremely happy to see us and very warm to us. They even asked for a shir, which I was surprised. I didn't think but they really wanted. They were trying to be as spiritual as they possibly could. They wanted to hear about what the Jews in America are doing. And again, as I said before, they were extremely, extremely grateful that people came. They didn't speak too much English. They really, there was only one person there who spoke English. There was one girl there who spoke English. She said she learned English in school, but nobody else there spoke English. I asked them, no one else there went to school? We have a bunch of dropouts over here? As a joke, so they thought it was funny, but they don't speak English. But the shir was in Hebrew, very, very short, and they were very, very appreciative for rabbis and for frum people to come together. And the achdus was, you really felt it. There's a video of it actually going around a little bit, the community of my shir to them. People said, wow, it looks so amazing. It was 10 times better. If you would have been there, you would have felt the real achdus. They really, really were really happy to see us. And they, what? I could send it to you, yeah. It's in Hebrew, though.
I don't think it's cool.
Did you go to school? Yeah, I was going to say, if you graduated school. So that was that. That was very, very meaningful. Now, I want to mention also one other part of the trip. The trip, they also decided that in order to have the schus of Torah, that they would together learn Meseches Tainis. That means that everybody on the trip would learn one blot of Tainis, and then they would make a siyum. Do you guys do that here at all? So I happen not to be a fan of this. I think it's so dumb, because when I was a kid, you had to learn 30 blot to have a siyum. You can't, and then the guy who thinks Hurrius is fun, no, it's not, right? But either way, you have to actually learn for an extended period of time. I don't like this whole, let's give out a blot. I don't know who started this business that you can make a siyum and say the hadron on this. I think it's a waste of time. But, okay, they wanted to do it. My chavrus and I actually learned 12 blot of Tainis, 10 or 12 blot of Tainis. We decided, we're just going to learn. We started from the beginning. We went all the way through. We're not exactly at the beginning. We started on Daf Hey, went all the way to Daf Yud Beis Yud Gimel. And there was a lot of learning on the bus because a few people that took the learning very, very seriously. I say that because I really believe that that making sure that everything was just within the context of Torah keeps everything grounded and everything appropriate. And of course, Torah is migni umatzli, it protects us. One other part of the trip, very interesting, that they recommended that we partner up with somebody, anybody that we've met. Meaning find somebody somewhere, a sick person, an oval, a soldier, something, make a relationship with them and try to do something, try to stay in touch with them to offer, I don't know if it's money, moral support, emotional support, whatever can be done. We found there was 2 soldiers, again, 2 families that lost children through the soldiers. We at our shul are going to be doing Avos Ubanim for Yoni Steinberg and for Matan Malka. These were 2 soldiers and their families that we met. And it's interesting, on the trip, they came over to one of the person who was arranging this, came over to us and said, I see you guys in Cleveland are big Torah guys. Like you 2 have been learning on the bus the entire time. So I imagine other people were collecting things. You guys are probably going to do something Torah related to in their memory. They're correct. It's for sure the best chus that you could possibly do is to learn for them, and that's what we have been doing. We did so on the bus, and we continued. Actually, I have to go in a minute and finish Tainus with him. So that is exactly what we're doing, is the Torah. Anyways, that was Wednesday night. Thursday morning, kind of said goodbye to the trip. They went a few more places. They met with Rabbi Victor Nevensal, who's a very chashuv person. I did not go to that. We went to the soldiers instead, and that is kind of how the trip wound down. I will say one more thing. I could say a lot about it. I want to say over a Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim that I said over in Shul this past Shabbos, which I think is important for us. And as this drags out, which we've been warned that this war is not going to be over, in a flash. This is not a retaliation for an isolated event. This is a war, which means war takes time, and there's going to be losses, and hopefully going to be a final victory. But this is not going to be short. And I want to share with you a thought I saw that I saw in the Rambam. The Rambam Moreh Nevuchim says about the Akedah. Now, the Akedah, we all know what the Akedah Yitzchak was. And the Rambam says that there are 2 main lessons that need to be drawn out of Akedah Yitzchak. Now, the first one, everybody can say on their own, I think. I think we've gotten this from the Rambam. Avraham Avinu, by offering his only son that he had put all his hopes in, that he had given up from ever having, and then finally when he got him, and it showed his tremendous love and fear of the Rebbeinu Shalom, Ata Yodata Ki Yirei Lekimata. That was number 1 from the Akedah. But the Rambam says that there's a second very important lesson. I saw it this week. I was blown away. Does anybody here read Moreh Nevuchim? No? In Arabic? Nobody here reads Moreh Nevuchim? So Moreh Nevuchim used to be like a really, really popular sefer. It's like 1,000 years ago. It was like Garden of Amunah of like 1,000 years ago. That's how popular it was. Oh. What?
No comment.
I can't make Rabbi Kutov jokes here? Yeah. So the Moreh Nevuchim was a sefer written by the Rambam, and he writes a second lesson from the Akedah. I never would have guessed this. I like hearing things that I never would have thought on my own. Right? Something a little profound. Zok the Rambam, you know what we learned from the Akedah? Do you realize that when a prophet, there's something in Klal Yisrael called Nevuah. Hashem communicated his will to us. Again, not us. We're not on the level of prophecy. But we know that it happened. It's tradition. We know that it happened. But do we really know that it happened? I mean, think about it. Maybe someone had a weird dream, someone got a little high, and they're not sure what really happened. Was it Hashem talking to them? Or was the friend messing with them from the other room behind the shower curtain? Like, do we really know? Zok the Rambam, Avraham Avinu, he wasn't told, go outside and do jumping jacks, right? There, it might be Hashem, it might not. Let me do the jumping jacks. What the heck? What's the worst that could happen, right? I'll burn a few calories, right? What if the Baskol said, go outside and drink a cold Pepsi? What's the worst that happens? You put on a few calories, right? Avraham Avinu, after hearing prophecy, was willing to take his only son and offer him on the Mizbeach. What do you see here? That the prophets had tremendous clarity that when Hashem spoke to them, this was the word of God, and I know what I need to do, and I stay on point, and there's no doubt whatsoever as to the source of their instructions and their direction. What the Rambam is saying, in a word, we see from here the tremendous clarity of the prophets. There was no doubt. Rabbi say, the lesson that I took out of this for B'maimer HaMosker and everything that we're speaking about here today, I was tremendously inspired, and it was an amazing trip. It was a meaningful trip. But the clarity that people have now, And I'm not talking about clarity in what Israel needs to do. You're going to hear a lot about that in the media and that little that ocean of, I won't call it little, that ocean of Instagram and Twitter. All that, we know what we need to do. We need to X. We need to fight Hamas. It's true. But when I talk about clarity, I mean every once in a while we need it all the time. But every once in a while we receive a jolt and a reminder that gives us clarity about what's really important. I want to tell you what you won't see and what I did not see there. I did not see restaurants full of people. You didn't see cafes. You didn't see, I was on Yafo, I had to go pick something up. It was deserted. People are really focused now. I went to visit a few kohelim there. They said, look, the Mir Yeshiva is pumping, right? It's knocking over there today. We always have this static in our brain, right? We all want to learn, we want to daven, we want to do good things, we want to do chesed. When there's static and there's things that distract us, and that takes away from our clarity. And a lot of what we do, especially in a yeshiva or anywhere, is we're trying to focus on the things that we know, even if we don't have tremendous clarity because of that static. I know I have other things I want to do, but I need to learn. Something like this needs to give us clarity as to what's really important. There are people right now that are being moiser nefesh for Achenu b'nei Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. There are Jews, there are tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Jews right now that are in danger, protecting other Jews so that other people can go about their lives. They can sit and learn. They can do so many different things that we do in our day-to-day. It needs to give everybody in this room, the more that you're connected to it and you hear about it and you're involved in it, clarity that there's a real purpose and there's people that are really doing this. Is not a video game. This is not Twitter. This is not a joke. This is a very, very serious thing. And I think you're going to see it. I already saw it. There are people in the world that they struggle with this clarity. They're already having videos of the parody of the soldier doing this. It's all misguided. It's because people lose clarity so quickly. It's really important to take, when we have an opportunity for clarity, to hold on to it as long as we can. Don't stop davening. Don't stop learning. Don't stop being kind to each other. Don't stop restraining yourself from things you're not supposed to do. All of these things, we have to have clarity from this and go weiter and weiter and weiter and not lose focus, not to be distracted, because it's going to go back, right? We're going to go back to what they say in Hebrew is to the shigra. Elia, what's shigra? Shigra means like the day-to-day, the dullness of just going. But we can't do that. We have to be on alert. We have to be serious. We have to, again, daven, learn, chesed, all these things. These are the things that are going to help Klal Yisrael be matzliach. So that's a little bit of what I brought back from Eretz Yisrael. Again, it was amazing. It was meaningful. It's something that I will never forget. And I'll leave you with one last feeling, and that is it's really, really special to be part of Klal Yisrael. It really is. It's an amazing, amazing family, Klal Yisrael, and you see people being mobilized all over the globe together, again, caring about each other. You're very, very blessed to be part of Klal Yisrael. Ashreinu matay chalkeinu, that we, aside from all the learning and all that stuff, but just to be part of a nation which is together, good times and in sad, to be together and to be mechazik each other is very, very special. So you're very, very lucky. Take those opportunities, daven, learn, be kind to each other, and the Rebbeinu Shalom should bless us with strength, with courage to recover. We shouldn't suffer from traumas and shouldn't suffer any more losses, but most importantly, He should bless us with strength to keep our enemies at bay so that Klal Yisrael can go back to Eretz Yisrael, build the Beis HaMikdash, V'vias Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'mheira V'yameinu.